Jets at noon with Tyson Rowicki and Jim Toth on 680 CJOB.
Welcome into Jets at noon. Tyson Rowicki along with Jim Toth here. Coming to you live from the Boston Pizza studio for gourmet pizza and pasta. Bring the team to Boston Pizza. We're also brought to you by Wash Method Car Wash on 690 St. Anne's Road and at washmethod.com. Text the show 204-780-6868. We'll pick a VIP text a little bit later on in the program. But Jim, it's Monday. You have a good weekend? I actually had a triple
Happy
pep.
Monday.
I had a triple pep pizza over the weekend.
Really?
Yeah, there was even a promotion going on. Buy one, get one free. So there you go.
When I was in Alberta, I went to Boston Pizza with the family, and I told my oldest, you know what's sneaky good here that's lost in all the triple pep and the Boston Brute and the pasta and everything else? Great White North. There's so many good things. Is the spaghetti and meatballs.
Wow.
Yeah.
Spaghetti and meatballs.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Used to get, back in my day when I was your age, you get a mountain of it. Very economic. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
Exactly.
Very economic for the amount of spaghetti and meatballs you got at BP.
Money moves.
Money moves.
Money
Here we
moves.
go. Can we swing it?
But like you mentioned, Jim, we were talking about it back on Free For All Friday. And we had a couple texts, couple calls talking about whether the Jets will be able to spend to the cap going forward. And we also had a really good conversation about the future of this club. And you and I aren't business experts by any means.
No.
You know, the only piece of business that I know comes from the great poet, Fat Joe, who once said, yesterday's price is not today's price.
The street lyricist.
Exactly.
One thing we are good at is spending other people's money. So we're like, yeah, they should be a cap team.
Yeah, exactly.
But can they be a cap?
So we are going to bring the big guns in for today. And we welcome into the program Michael Naraine, Associate Professor of Sport Management at Brock University. Michael, thanks so much for taking the time. How's the summer going?
It's going well, man, but I can't compete with Fat Joe. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
He knows a thing or two. He's also a great guy. There's a cool story with him.
We had him book Michael, and then he said, I defer to Michael.
Yes.
But I said, really, Fat Joe? He's like, oh, absolutely.
Michael, I just wanted to start things off with you here. You know, we were having this conversation last week, but can some of these smaller market teams still manage to survive in the NHL if that cap does eventually jump, or will jump up, but when it gets to the 120, the 130, and then even the $140 million in the coming years?
Yeah, look, I mean, the question is, can teams survive? And the answer is yes, they absolutely can. The question is, does ownership want to do that? And to the point, you know, that you guys are making, it's easy to spend other people's money, but that is in our capitalist society how the rich get richer. You borrow debt, you borrow money, or you spend other people's money and make it back in other areas. And so, yeah, the question is, you know, does ownership want to spend to the cap? And that's a question mark I can't answer for you guys today. I would have been excited to be there on Free For All Fridays because I love a good free for all. But, you know, fundamentally, when we're talking about salary caps, floors, it comes down to basic economics of professional sport, which is you are dealing with the mafia. And even in a mafia mentality, you've got your big fish, you've got the mafia dons, but there's the little runs at the table that are there as well that run a little corner of the market, and they're still at the table. And this is the thing that we have to understand. There's not 100, NHL teams. There's not 1,000 teams. This is not like other industries where there's free market. This is a closed market. Yes, you can create a new seat at the table every now and then, and we'll talk about that in a sec, and the knock-on effects of that. But fundamentally, if the Jets and the ownership of the Jets don't want to spend to the cap, and then the fans and the corporate partners don't want to support the team in that market, then you end up in places like, look at the Oakland Athletics, who are no longer in Oakland, right? So that's, you get sales of teams. So fundamentally, the question is, can a small market team compete? Yes. The issue is, does the ownership want to invest that kind of resourcing?
And so that's what kind of the debate was, is like with the cap going up, and I had this vision, I don't know, Michael, I'm like, well, I think if it's 110, 120, they might always be there. But if it goes up to 140, I don't know if this small market can support that. And then what the callers and the texters were doing on Free For All Friday is like, well, why wouldn't it? And I just said, well, there's a business model, right? And I think we forget that in sports, that even like Mark Chipman's a businessman, and so is David Thompson. They have a business model, and that model isn't designed to sort of, this is how much we make, this is how much we profit. Now, Mark really wants to win. I know that. But I often think, Michael, of the Bulls of the 90s. And the minute the 90s ended and Michael Jordan retired, they just, I can't imagine how much money they made over the past decade and the 6 championships and everything else. But they went right back at it with the budget for that year, and it was tiny. And I'm hoping you could weigh in on that a little bit when it comes to like the Jets and all that. That could they afford $140 million cap and explain the business model of whether it's sports or not, that people adhere to it, and whether they make record profits or not, that model stays in place for that year.
Yeah, it's a great point. And so thanks for bringing it up, because, what fans and listeners often think about, is like, oh, well, it's just a static industry. Like, this is a team, but the team and the franchise have multiple divisions within it, right? Like, so you have to think about the hockey ops side of things, but then corporate partnerships, HR and accounting, like there are various divisions and with various different levers. And so when we're talking about, and this is no offense to anybody in the marketplace that I'm speaking to, but let's be honest, Winnipeg, Manitoba is a smaller market relative to, say, Toronto, New York, LA. And so when we're talking about smaller market professional men's teams, the important lever, specifically in hockey, the most important lever, arguably, is ticket sales. You want to have that consistent. That's one of the challenges. If you go back to the 90s with the Jets, if you look at other teams in professional sport, Arizona Coyotes, sometimes when ticket sales are not consistently high, that's a challenge, because in the NHL, unlike the other men's professional sports like the NBA you just mentioned with the Bulls, ticket sales are still relatively important. Now, media is also important as well. And the NHL has been doing a good job of extracting as much cash as it can out of Rogers and out of ESPN and Turner down in the States. So they're doing well on the media side. And then the third bucket that people are missing in this business model is the corporate partnerships bit. And that's where large market teams like Toronto, New York, and LA benefit. Because even when the team is not as successful, if you still have that corporate partnership behind you, not just in terms of, okay, well, do we have people in the seats, but do we have people buying our suites? And that's where you've seen teams like Arizona fail, is because there wasn't that. There might have been fans willing to pay for tickets, or there was fluctuation there, but it was on the corporate side where there wasn't that backing. And that certainly is what has happened with the Jets in the past as well, and over the past few years where we've had these conversations back and forth. So the business model is challenged. It's under extreme pressure in your marketplace, predominantly because of the lack of corporate support for the Jets. How much can you get behind the team from a corporate standpoint? Because the margins are greater there. And so again, for the fair weather fan who goes, look, the Jets are having an unsuccessful season, Scheifele gets hurt, or, Hellebuyck gets hurt, or whatever, I think the team's going to be crummy. There could be the ebbs and flows there, but the model will account for that if you have the extreme, or I should say the benefit of the high margin values of corporate partnerships. And so that's where you see teams like the Leafs. The Leafs were not good last year, but the Leafs are still pumping it when it comes to the bottom line because of the corporate support that still drives that part of the business. So to your point, winning does, I'll land the planes here, winning does breed success, specifically on a corporate partnership side. The Bulls haven't been good since Michael Jordan's years. I mean, you could argue, they kind of got good around, Joakim Noah and Kirk Heinrich and those guys in the 2012, 2013 area. But the Bulls they haven't won a championship since the Michael Jordan era. And yet there are people around the world that still buy Bulls gear. And the Chicago Bulls are still a high ticket item in that marketplace, despite the fact that they haven't won. So winning can breed success, but winning alone can't do that. You need to have the full ecosystem work for you. And I just don't think the corporate partnership side with the Jets is where it needs to be. It's getting there. They've brought in some good people, some students I've taught in the past, but corporate Manitoba and corporate Canada West need to get behind the Jets as well.
And Michael, how do you kind of foster those relationships with corporate entities? What more can the Jets do to kind of shorten that bridge a little bit between, say, a team like Toronto?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a little bit of my secret sauce and the secret sauce in the industry, but I'll share it with you guys because I like you guys. It's a people-faced business for sure. People understand that. Folks understand that. But what really changes the model or flips the model is when you stop thinking about selling assets, like, oh, we've got rink boards. Like, let's find a local dentistry or a local, small business to put up their ad on the rink board there, to selling a story, selling a vision, selling a dream, and not waiting for people to come to you because you're the biggest ticket in town, but you going to bigger fish with a coherent, multifaceted strategy. And for a long period of time in professional sport, the corporate partnership side has been like, look, we're going to wait for people to come to us. Like, we are the top dogs. We want people to come to us and say, hey, look, we just want to bring bags of cash to your door. And when you're a smaller market, you can't necessarily do that. And yes, it's picking up the phone, it's the text, it's the emails, but it's also about the larger visions that you can sell. And I'll give you a really, really quick example because I know we're short on time. But the Toronto Raptors had sold all of their inventory, all of their assets, and yet the big league said, hey, guys, you got to sell more. But the corporate partnership seems like we sold 100%. Like, 100% is literally the max. And the big league said, yes, but we want to see more growth. So what did they do? They literally said, okay, well, in our existing minds, we've sold everything, but now let's think differently. And so, as an example, they said, look, we don't have a grocery chain sponsoring us. Like, why don't we build a commercial kitchen inside of our recreation center here in urban Toronto so the kids can learn how to cook, not just play basketball, learn how to cook with the ingredients from that grocery store. They created a cookbook, a children's book, and they brought that, like the team did that by themselves and pitched it to various grocery chains. They didn't wait for them to come to them. They went out and pitched those stories. And sometimes you have to show people the vision, not just wait for them to figure it out on their own. And I think, that's where the Jets are going to be able to take that next level step is by saying, look, let's be different. Let's be bold. Let's be, we got to go high risk, high reward because we're in a marketplace where if we don't do that, if we rely on our laurels here, then we may not be here in 10 to 15 years from now.
Well, and that was the issue when the building stopped selling out a couple of years ago, was that corporate buy-in and suites and all that was just not there because they went so heavy on tickets. Like, they wanted every Manitoban to be a part of it and get tickets. And in hindsight, that was a model that really caused them some issues because now the past 2-3 seasons they've been pressing those corporate ones. So we appreciate the explanation, Michael. This has been fascinating, right? And that's what we need to understand is just that just because they've made a ton of money or have a lot of money doesn't mean they're going to spend a lot of money. And I think it's that model of which you explained a lot to our listeners on how they have to go forward if they're going to be a cap team.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I will say, because I know we're up against the clock here, but, the NHL is about to expand as well. And, it seems like, Houston Aeros are going to come back here or some incarnation of that, which is interesting within itself. But you're talking about a cash split for the 32 teams in the league of roughly around $2 billion. If you divide that $2 billion by the 32 teams in the league, you're talking about each team raking in roughly, let's just say 62 million US. That 62 million US divided by a $9 million increase in the cap per year is, 6 years of runway, if not closer to 7. So 6.5 years of runway, if you just put that money aside. And so the question, again, you guys asked me at the beginning of the show, at the beginning of the hour is, can the Jets spend to the cap with the cap increasing? Well, if you really wanted to, you take that $62 million, you put it in a GIC, on a yearly basis, and then you take the profit, and then you start pulling out the $6 million here and there, and then we can have this conversation again in 5 to 6 years. Are the Jets still being able to spend to the cap? But when you get a $62 million investment, what do you do with that? Do you just pay off your debts? Do you put it into infrastructure? Do you put it into high margin products and assets like, premium experiences at MTS and Bell Center? So there's question marks there, but fundamentally, the Jets community needs to ask, like, look, we want to support this team, but the best product's got to be out there. And if the team's going to be, just kind of fledging along, it's also okay for ownership to have those honest conversations with the fans as well and say, look, we now need to enter rebuild mode. We had a good group here with Hellebuck and Scheifele. Maybe we still got 1 or 2 more years left, 3 more years, but at the end of that life cycle, things will need to be renewed, and it'll be really interesting to see if the team spends to the cap once that renewal cycle happens, and it happens for everybody. So don't be surprised to see that renewal take a life in a few years.
Michael, really appreciate you taking the time. All the best, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, anytime, guys, and enjoy the rest of your Monday.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Great
that was
stuff.
Michael Naraine, Associate Professor of Sport Management at Brock University. It is going to be fascinating to see how it all plays out over these next couple of years.
Yeah.
But we got to take a break. And also, make sure you call the Boston Pizza Hockey Hotline, 204-780-6800, where you can come for lunch every weekday to Boston Pizza. Get a delicious main side and ice cold drink for only $15, only at BP. We'll be right back with more Jets at Noon right after this. A little Fat Joe, too. Oh, my gosh.
Sweet.
Jets at Noon on 680 CJOB.
Jim, we were
Yes.
just talking about money.
Money
moves.
You could take that $60 million GIC and get a center.
You could, absolutely. And we'll
If
touch
they
on
wanna
that
come.
at the end of the show, because we had a really good conversation about a potential blockbuster that the Jets could do.
Yes.
But, Jim, I wanted to ask you, when we're talking about affordability, would you consider locking up Elias Salomonsson once he's eligible to sign an extension after January 1st this year?
Like long term?
Yeah. And maybe lock him in on a 6-year deal worth $5 million?
I would have to see what he does this year.
Yeah, I agree. But it's interesting. If you could lock up a piece like that where all of a sudden he's in the lineup for the next 5 years at a really affordable price.
If you think he's going to be a top 4 guy for the next 6 years, I don't mind giving him $6 million.
Yep, I'm with you. And
Might be an overpay the first, after this season, he'll be another year after this, and then that year. But by season 2 of that 6-year deal, he'd probably be worth every penny.
Yeah, that will be interesting. And Chevy's been known to do that. But we're going to take a break for the 12:30 news. When we come back, we're going to look at the NHL Network's top 20 centers and where Mark Scheifele ranks. We'll be right back with more Jets at Noon right after this. Thank you, Jeff, and welcome back. Hope you had a great vacation.
I did. Thanks.
Perfect. Boy, Bronner.
Glad to be back.
Well deserved.
That's true. That's very true.
Wow. Let's do some research into that. See if that's factual.
I'm Tyson and Jim. I'm along with Jim Toth right now here at the Boston Pizza Studio for gourmet pizza and pasta. Bring the team to Boston Pizza. And this hour is also brought to you by Wash Method Car Wash on 690 St. Anne's Road and at washmethod.com. We'll have our VIP text
I was
at the
there
end of the show.
yesterday again.
Yeah?
Took the old Buick in,
You go there a lot.
shined it up.
Never wash it at home yourself?
I don't mind that, but they just do such a great job.
Fair.
That it's and such a fair price that I can't. The sweat equity doesn't make sense to me. You know what I mean? Great
Sweat
staff.
equity is a great stat.
They were great work at it. Did a great job and open till 5, so it worked out. My spouse has a thing with bugs on the car. Any highway driving, you come home.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you can't. I'm like, can do it tomorrow? Absolutely not. No, we got to get those off.
The sweat bed or beads per minute per 60.
Which is weird because the Buick, she was like, it's fine. You don't have to go. And I'm like, what? Why doesn't the Buick matter? It's a 2006 Dream Machine.
All cars deserve love.
All cars.
They absolutely do. But Jim, we mentioned it right before we headed to break there, but the NHL Network released their top 20 centers in the NHL. Mark Scheifele's been trying to crack the top 10 for the last couple of years. Hasn't quite been able to do it, but was this season enough to vault him into that
100-point season.
Yeah, 103 points for Mark Scheifele. Obviously, career highs for him. He was fantastic for lots of the season. But we'll take a look at the list. At number 20, it starts off with Dylan Larkin, then Tage Thompson. Number 18, Wyatt Johnston from the Dallas Stars. 17, Braden Point. I think he's going to have a huge bounce back year. Point.
You do?
Yeah, he had a really rough start to the year, but then when he came back from that injury, he did really start to pick up the pace a little bit.
Long-time listeners will know I love everything about Wyatt Johnston.
Yes.
And especially his age. So I don't mind him at 18, but I think he will be top 10. How old is he? He's like
29. He's very young still, and I believe he's 24. And you look at him and Thomas Harley as well. Like they still have, and when we talked about it, 23 years old right now. And when we looked at it, when teams like the Stars who are lower in the under 23 rankings, well, they got guys like Wyatt Johnston and Thomas Harley who are entering their primes and still locked in for a very long time.
Yeah.
So,
and he's, as you said, he's 23 years old right now. He'll be 24 on May 14th. So he'll be 23 this year. And he's already had a 41, 65, 71, and 86 point seasons. and has never missed a game in the regular season. Played all 82 games, 24, 32, 33, and 45 goals per season. I love everything about this 23-year-old center.
He's probably going to be,
except for the fact he plays for Dallas.
He's probably going to be on that Team Canada once it comes to the World Cup.
He's a guy that I didn't know why his name wasn't thrown around a little bit more, other than age. I think the Suzuki's and the Scheifeles and all that were so talked about and read that, but I think he'll be on multiple Olympic teams.
Moving down the list, Connor Bedard at 16. Jim, I have a question for you about Bedard. Do you think he's, as his career goes on, do you think he's a long-term center, or do you think he'd be better off playing on the wing? I
don't know who you speak of. Who is it? Connor Bedard? No, I think he's a center. I think he's a really good center, and I think he's going to continue to develop. And he just signed that new deal too. But Connor Bedard at 16, here's the thing though. I don't know if I put Connor Bedard ahead of Wyatt Johnston right now. Long-term, potentially, probably long-term. But right now, I don't know if Wyatt Johnston isn't a better center than all-around better center than Connor Bedard.
It is funny that we forget in the beginning, the first half of the season, when it was Macklin Celebrini, Connor Bedard, and Leo Carlsson at the top of the NHL scoring race.
Yes.
And just how quickly that happened. I mean, Connor Bedard did get hurt, of course, and that dampers the goal total and the point total, but he's obviously going to be a really good player.
And I think this is for this coming year, right?
Yeah, based off of last season.
Based if Connor Bedard is a healthy year, he'll be better than Wyatt Johnston most likely, given that production. So,
absolutely.
Fair enough.
Nico Hischier at 15. He was really good this year, especially when Jack Hughes missed quite a bit of time due to injury. He's just a really solid center. Just plays really good defense as well.
He's a solid two-way center, really good defense, but 66 points in 82 games isn't elite top 10 center.
No, I would move him down.
The rest of his game is so good that he'll get 66 points one year, he'll get 80 the next. And if Jack Hughes is around all year, then he probably gets, more. But I think he's 15 with 66 points because of his all-round game.
Yep. 14, Leo Carlsson. He's poised to have a big season here too. He already had a great season last year, but kind of tapered off a little bit.
He now has to have massive seasons every year.
Yeah, if you're going to be the highest paid player in the NHL for the time being, you're going to have to put up some pretty hefty totals. Tim Stützle at 13. Both him and Leo Carlsson could potentially jump into the top 10 after this year, depending how they do.
I really like Tim Stützle, and I think the team around him and some issues there have been part of the problem. But I really do think he's definitely. I like him at 13.
He's got some jam to him as well that I like. Number 12, Sebastian Aho just won the Stanley Cup as the number 1 center. Didn't have the greatest playoffs per se, but he's still he's one of those solid guys. I maybe move him down the list a little bit, but he's right in around there at 12.
I don't mind him at 12. He could be 13, 14. I wouldn't mind him too. I would not put him in the top 10, but obviously a dynamic center.
So one spot left until the top 10. Could Mark Scheifele crack the top 10? No, he couldn't. He comes in at number 11. Before we reveal the rest of the top 10, do you think that checks out? Just before we hear the names?
Yeah, because he's always been 12th, right?
Yeah, he's always been around there.
So I like that he went up, and what they wrote about him was Scheifele was quiet. Scheifele very quietly had the best season of his career, topping 100 points for the first time, 103 with a career best 67 assists. He scored 36 goals, the third time in 4 seasons. He's had at least that many and has at least 20 goals in 11 consecutive seasons. Scheifele also became the Jets Atlanta Thrashers all-time leader in points, 907 in games, 961. He had at least 1 point in 56 games, including 35 multi-point games. So we got to get into the rest of it. I like that he moved up. I'll say that. Yeah. I think when you have career highs, it doesn't matter your age, and the career high includes 100 points. You have to move up. So he only went 1 spot. So let's get into this. This is going to cause some controversy.
Number 10, and this is the one that's really going to be controversial. Jack Hughes at number 10. And look, he can put up points, no doubt about it. But you do kind of wonder, is there a little bit of can he get it done when he gets to that next level?
So when I saw these names, I was like, I think they're very close, but I would put Scheifele ahead of Hughes going into this year just because of Scheifele's year last year. And then this. Despite being limited to 61 games because of injuries, Hughes led the Devils with 77 points.
Yes.
So prorate that to 82. He smashes the 103 that Scheifele had. He had 50 assists, second in goals with 27. He scored at least 25 goals in 5 straight seasons, has at least 70 points in the past 3. He's missing his tooth in this picture. He's got the American flag written or draped around him. But yeah, I think going forward, I don't have a problem with him being ahead of Mark Scheifele.
The only thing I will say, the best ability is availability. And he has dealt with a lot of injuries. I mean, the one this year, it was that weird dinner incident with a knife or something. I don't know what happened. Ended up cutting his hand. Weird. That Devils team just had a bunch of weirdness around them this year. At number 9, this one I don't totally agree with. Nick Suzuki at number 9. We'll look at number 8, Austin Matthews. I don't know.
Wait, let's go to Suzuki because he beat out Scheifele for the Olympic team.
For sure. I think that after this past season, that absolutely makes sense. I'm such a huge Nick Suzuki fan. I mean, you look at just his point totals as well. He's got a ton of points on top of being the Selke winner, playing elite level defense. He had 101 points last year, Nick Suzuki.
I think it's his all-round game that pushes him ahead of Scheifele.
And then he has a great playoffs too, 16 points in 19 games for the Habs as they go on an Eastern Conference final run. I really like Nick Suzuki, and I think that's fair. And honestly, I would think about moving him higher.
Scheifele had 2 points more than Suzuki overall. However, he had 36 goals. Suzuki had 29, but he had 72 assists. Mark Scheifele had 67 assists. I don't mind this, actually. It's so close, 11-9, but I do give the slight edge for his all-round game to Nick Suzuki.
Yep. This is the interesting one. Austin Matthews. Now, if you're going off pedigree, then yes, absolutely, he's top 10. But we saw this year, injuries were kind of hampering him. He didn't look like the Austin Matthews that we've seen in years past. Wasn't as explosive. The shot wasn't as lethal. And it just seems like he really struggled at times. So what do you think about Austin Matthews heading into this season?
Well, there's no doubt that if healthy and performing at a high level, he's top 10 in the league. But let me ask you this. Say they're the same age. Going into this year, do you take Scheifele or Austin Matthews? Same age, 33. I know Matthews isn't.
I would probably go with Mark Scheifele. If they were the same age and Mark Scheifele just had the same season.
If they were the same age, 33 years old, and they're coming off these years, I would take Mark Scheifele to have a better year than Austin Matthews. I don't know how many years I've never said that before, right? But the injuries, this and that, he has to stay healthy and he has to have a big year this year. As I said, take out the health and the issues with Toronto and the lineup and everything else. Clearly a top 10 center. But going into this year, I don't know. Like it's interesting.
The last interesting name here at number 7, Sidney Crosby. Is this Sidney Crosby's last year in the top 10 when it comes to centers?
I don't think so. If he does this again, I don't think so.
He's the best.
He's just as effective in his 21st season as he was in his first. He had 74 points in 68 games. He had 29 goals. At that age, I mean,
he hasn't lost a step one bit.
And then you add in the hockey smarts and the work ethic and the defense. I have no problem with him being in 7th.
And then when we look at the top 6, really no surprises and no one that Mark Scheifele would compete with at this point. Jack Eichel at 6, Sasha Barkov at 5, Leon Draisaitl at 4, Macklin Celebrini at 3, which is crazy for him to be in the top 3 centers after 2 years in the NHL. He's he's my sneaky pick for the MVP this year. I don't know if that's even sneaky, but I might lay a little bit of coin on Macklin Celebrini.
I will ask you this though. I have no problem with this top 5. Obviously dynamic. It starts off at number 1 with Connor, and then Nathan McKinnon, and then Macklin Celebrini, Leon Draisaitl. The only ones I question is Celebrini right now a better center than Leon Draisaitl? Look,
it's close.
He is dynamic but I would think just the experience. And I'm not knocking Celebrini because it's either 3-4. It's either Draisaitl or Celebrini Draisaitl. I just wonder about Celebrini this year ahead of Draisaitl.
And then 2 guys, Nathan McKinnon, Connor McDavid, 1, 2.
Well, here's the question, right? A lot of people 2 years ago debated if McKinnon wasn't better.
No, it's Connor McDavid. Yeah,
it's Connor McDavid every day of the week for me.
Absolutely. We got to take a break, but when we come back, Jim, got an interesting conversation that we had on the podcast exclusive involving a restricted free agent that still has a contract, and maybe the Jets could make a move to make them better now and in the future. We'll have more on that right after this.
And let us know if you think Mark Scheifele is fairly at number 11.
Yep.
Jets at noon on 680 CJOB.
Don't forget to call the Boston Pizza Hockey Hotline at 204-780-6800. And we're brought to you by Boston Pizza. Coming for lunch every weekday to Boston Pizza. Get a delicious main side and ice cold drink for only $15. Only at BP. And Jim, on the podcast exclusive today, you can find that wherever you get your podcasts, we had a really interesting conversation about one Adam Fantili in Columbus. He's still unsigned. Should the Jets shovel out $14 million or $15 million on a 5-year contract to try and get Adam Fantili from the Columbus Blue Jackets? Now, if the Jets were to do that, it would end up costing them 4 first-round picks, 4 of the next first-round picks for them. Do you consider doing that and bringing in Adam Fantili and going with Mark Scheifele, Adam Fantili, Vigo Bjork, and Adam Lowry down the middle?
Well, I definitely consider it, and I think that they should be considering it. But here's the thing, like offer sheets, Leo Carlsson said you'd have to be an idiot not to sign that. And I kind of think he felt that way about any team. Any team offers you 5 years, $18 million per, you'd have to be an idiot not to sign that. And that's what's lost in that whole conversation, because it was Philadelphia. They're a playoff team. Of course, you'd want to play with that good young core that they built there and stuff like that. But what's lost in that conversation is in offer sheets, you have to make an offer you can't refuse. Ask Jason Robertson and the Seattle Kraken, right?
Yeah.
So if Columbus is offering 10 or 11, let's say 11, and another team is offering 13 to try and get him to sign the sheet, doesn't Winnipeg have to make it 15?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, you have to make it so that the other team can sign it.
You have to make it, quote unquote, you'd have to be an idiot not to sign it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And then you got to give up the 4 first-round picks, which just last week we had that great debate about whether they should have traded those picks and went for it the past 3 years to be the 28th ranked under 23 prospect team, or if they could have kept those, drafted them, and been better in that aspect. So I just don't think Winnipeg's. We kicked it around on the podcast. You can go listen to it there. Let us know what you think, either on the fan line or on text at 780-6868. But I just don't think the Jets can ever give up 4 first-round picks.
Yeah,
Florida can go 4 years without one. You know, and there's ways to recoup it maybe in 2 years. You move on from a key asset and get a first-round pick back that way. I understand that. But for a team like Winnipeg in this market who cannot get players and the cost to actually overpay, I just don't think you can give up 4. But should they take a run at Adam Fantili? For sure they should.
Well, it's interesting too. Does that 4 first-round kind of pill become a little bit easier to swallow if you can trade a guy like Connor Hellebuyck? Say if he still wants to be dealt.
And recoup 1 or 2.
Grab 2 first-round picks. All of a sudden it's like, oh, Connor Hellebuyck and 2 firsts for Adam Fantili? I can get behind that.
Yeah, they got to start thinking outside the box. So I don't mind that train of thought, but I don't know if Adam Fantili, like in my mind, Adam Fantili is going, if I'm moving, it ain't going to be like, if I'm willing to sign an offer sheet, it ain't going to be to Winnipeg.
Yeah,
and we also discussed, not on the podcast, but we should this week, because I love this conversation of, I'm still dumbfounded how many players do not want to come. But I say that because so many people push back on me is like, why do you think no players or Chevy can't go? Like the Dylan Larkins I get, but I've said this over the years, even when Ehlers was here, to not want to come play in this top 6 and look at that goalie and look at Josh Morrissey and go.
Well, like PLD, for example. I mean, the Jets end up pretty good despite him asking for a trade. But
he was
weird.
A prime example of him. Like, there's a guy at the time that I would be like, I'll come play in that top 6 till I hit free agency.
Yeah.
Like,
play all my prime with a super elite talent around me. I'm on the first power play unit, and then go cash in once you get to the UFA. Yeah. I don't know. I'm with you on that. That was an odd situation.
And I think it was Natchez when they were interested in Carolina and stuff, and he was like, I'm not. I'm not going. For 2 years, I'm like, for 2 years, you don't want to come play in this top 6 and then go into UFA?
Yeah, no, totally strange.
Now, it worked out for him, but you know what I'm saying?
Totally.
But I'm mad at myself because I know that's the way it is, but yet I'm still dumbfounded when I see some of the skill here that players go, no, and not just now, but I mean like 3-4 years ago, no, I'm not interested.
Yep, totally. I'm Tyson Rowicki along with Jim Toth. Jim will take you all the way to 2 o'clock. Thank you all for listening. Really appreciate it, and we'll be back same time tomorrow. See ya.